Look at the United States from space at night, and you notice a stark divide. The eastern half is a glowing web of city lights. But as you move further inland, that light abruptly drops off, leaving a massive expanse of unbroken darkness. This map illustrates the severity of that split. If you draw a vertical line straight down the middle of the continent, exactly 80% of all Americans live to the east. Only 20% occupy the entire western half. And even that 20% is highly concentrated. California, Oregon, and Washington account for the vast majority of western residents, holding 11% of the total U.S. population. Subtract the coast, and you are left with a massive inland territory taking up half of the American mainland, but inhabited by a mere 9% of the country. To equal the total population of that vast western half-continent, you would need nearly 4 cities the size of New York. Why does a single, invisible boundary perfectly dictate human settlement patterns across an entire continent? This photograph of the Rocky Mountains shows exactly what we are up against. These peaks form an imposing physical wall that slices right through the western United States. This cross-section tracks Pacific weather systems. Moisture-rich clouds gather and push eastward, but sitting too low to clear the Rockies, they collide with the peaks, dumping their precipitation on the western slopes. Looking at this thriving coastal city skyline, you can see how that localized heavy rainfall provides the constant water supply needed to sustain dense urban populations on the edge of the continent. Meteorologists call this a rain shadow. Because the mountains physically block those Pacific clouds, the inland territory sitting directly behind them is cut off from western moisture. If the west coast is blocked, you might wonder why this dry interior doesn't simply pull its water from rain systems moving inland from the east. This satellite view frames the Gulf of Mexico, which acts as a massive engine generating the moisture that waters the eastern half of the country. This map tracks that moisture pushing north. Massive amounts of rain easily penetrate deep into the eastern mainland. However, strong wind currents constantly blow out of the Gulf, actively altering their trajectory. Those winds physically push the moisture streams to the right. The precipitation is forced to turn away before it can ever cross that invisible dividing line into the western interior. Trapped behind the Rocky Mountains to the west and bypassed by the deflected Gulf winds to the east, the center of the country is left entirely starved of rain. The physical result of this meteorological dead zone is captured in this photograph. It's a vast landscape of arid earth and sparse desert vegetation. Human settlement operates on a simple biological rule. Concentrating millions of people in one place requires massive, reliable agricultural crop yields to keep them fed. In contrast, this photo of the eastern mainland shows the direct result of abundant, consistent rainfall. These sprawling, lush green fields support the intense scale of farming required for high-density populations. The western interior simply lacks the naturally occurring water to sustain agricultural production on that level. Without the ability to grow crops at scale, the land cannot physically support a massive population. The invisible line dividing the American population is a physical boundary, where the lack of rainfall prevents the growth of major cities. This divide exists because human settlement remains tied to the availability of water, a pattern dictated by the placement of the mountains